Yes.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Happy new week. I'm here with the gorgeous Suzanne Gomes. She is the author of From Wife to Widow, and 3 hours from where I am now in a massive countryside property. Yeah. What's the place where you're from?
Coolabine.
Coolabine. Yeah. So that's in Queensland. And is that like north of Brisbane or inland?
Yeah, that's north of Brisbane. It's in the Sunshine Coast hinterland. So it's about inland 45 minutes from the beaches, which is just perfect.
I love it. Awesome. So I can see my what's it called, comments here. So if anyone's got comments or questions, I can follow the stream on my phone. I worked this out only 2 or 3 weeks ago that I could do this. I thought it was just us talking to each other. But let me give these guys your official introduction of who you are, and then we'll talk about this particular topic, Beyond the Widow, and the reason why you wrote your book From Wife to Widow, and you're also writing your second book. And so and I've had a little bit of the pleasure of getting to know you a bit more because we've caught up here when I was here, and so I think you're amazing. So here you go, guys. Suzanne Gomes, before becoming a small business owner, was a corporate executive in one of Australia's iconic companies. She led various large teams over 25 years and has spoken and chaired several major events. Suzanne's life was turned upside down when her husband Robert was diagnosed with leukemia in 2013. Over the last 6 years, Suzanne's journal of Robert's treatment and the diary of her heartache has been turned into her first novel, From Wife to Widow. Suzanne has spoken to groups about her struggles and her role as Robert's carer. Her story is about dealing with loss and grief, but also of love. Her insights are brave and inspirational and give the audience a raw insight to the reality of dealing with blood cancer. She has enjoyed the journey of bringing this book into reality, and she's currently writing her second book, From Corporate to Country, and continues to support widows and widowers. All right, so this is a sensitive topic and one that people might be curious to know, and I guess maybe what was the passion behind? Let's start off with that. Why did you decide to write this book?
As you said, I was journaling a lot of Robert's medical diagnosis, what the doctors were telling us on a daily basis. But it really wasn't until 2017 when Robert was actually in remission. We'd been on a few trips. We'd done a 75-kilometre hike in Tasmania to raise money for the Leukemia Foundation. And I have to say, during those 3 months, we actually felt like life was normal. We were actually going back to some sort of normality. Like I said, we went on a holiday to Broome, which was amazing. So I decided through many work trips interstate that instead of doing work at night, I'd actually start writing my journal and writing basically a book about hope and about how a person can survive blood cancer and then go on and live a normal life. So the book actually wasn't obviously going to be titled what it is today because we had so much hope that Robert was going to stay in remission, survive blood cancer, and then, live a wonderful life. So that's how it basically came about. Lots of hours in hotels, lots of hours on planes, and me just typing away on how I kind of viewed our journey up until that point.
Wow. And so then it shifted, right? So it was 3 months that you guys thought everything would be okay?
Yeah, so Robert had been in remission for just on 2 years. After he'd had his bone marrow transplant. But yeah, in the September of 2017, after we'd been in Broome in June, we got the unfortunate news that Robert had relapsed. And from there, we then had nearly another 2 years of treatments, of what we'd call dress rehearsals and near misses, where he was in, critical conditions throughout the disease. Unfortunately for Robert, he had an acute leukemia. Only 25% of people after having a bone marrow transplant actually survive it. And, I'm a bit of a numbers person. and we were always upbeat around we were going to be that 25%. But unfortunately, the disease, all the chemotherapy, and for those out there that don't know much about leukemia doesn't have cures like a lot of maybe breast cancers and bowel cancers and things that, you know, the survival rate is a lot higher. So unfortunately, then Robert lost his fight in June 2019 after, like I said, a real long struggle, lots of pain, lots of, I mean, you can read the book to find out all about it, but it was heartbreaking, that last 8 weeks of his life.
Yeah. And then the book changed a year later, I think we met, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and then you said, so it was in a way to honor, you know, what you guys went through and to give some tools to others, because, so let's talk a little bit about your journey as the carer. You know, you say someone needs to care for the carer when things like this happen. So what's some advice, or how was it for you? Like, what do you think, you know, what were the things you liked about it and you didn't like about it? Like, what did you need?
Yeah, now all my family and all Robert's family are actually down in Melbourne, and you know, we made the choice in 2009 to actually come and live in Brisbane. And although we'd made lots of friendships here in Queensland, still people need to go to work, and we never wanted to put that burden on anybody else. So I was lucky enough that my mum and dad were retired. They basically, as soon as they could, got up on took a plane up to Brisbane. And while I was visiting Robert every day in the hospital, and I initially took 3 weeks off work when he was first diagnosed, but then I had to go back to work, and I was like working 7 till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then going to the hospital, which was 5 minutes away, you know, 3 till 7, 8 o'clock. And if Robert had a really bad afternoon where he'd get fevers, then it might be 9, 10 o'clock, and then I'd have to do, and I say I have to do, but you've got to hold down the job. I'd go and do it all again. So having mum and dad up, what that allowed me to do was basically do that routine. They took the burden off of, you know, caring for the garden, cooking my meals. So every time I came home from the hospital, I had a home cooked meal that had vegetables and, you know, fruit and all the good stuff that I needed to keep my energy levels up. You know, I needed to make sure that I had at least 8 hours sleep a night. And by mum and dad doing my washing, doing Robert's washing, just doing errands. Like I remember I'd get up each morning and mum would say, you know, okay, so what do you need us to do today? And, you know, we talked through that. And at least then when I came home, I literally never felt that I had to, you know, do those household, you know, things. And plus, you know, it's not just what I would do in the household, it was what Robert would do in the household as well. And that went over that whole period. And I was fortunate enough, and we had a bit of a joke with my parents at one stage that every time Robert seemed to relapse, and I think this was the universe saying, you know, and I have a very spiritual mindset now, but the universe saying that they needed to be there. So whenever mum and dad was there, when Robert relapsed, we literally fell into that routine again. So I think over the period of nearly the 6 years Robert was ill, mum and dad basically were my carer for 6 kind of iterations of Robert's treatment, and then I could be Robert's full-time carer. Yeah,
wow. It's a big one, isn't it? Like how blessed you were to have that option, which some people unfortunately don't. But I guess what would be some advice to people who might be that primary carer like you were, you know, because, you know, how can they seek support if they don't have, like, say, their parents?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, especially in the cancer area. There's lots of organisations that can help you. Like the Leukemia Foundation is amazing in terms of, you know, they have villages, they have support services. whether it's cancelling or, helping you out for things like shopping. And so there is a variety of different support services. But what I'd also say is, especially to people that aren't the carer but know someone who is a carer, don't say to your friends and family, give me a call if you need anything, because we don't call. You do not call when you're thinking of everything else. The last thing you want to do is call somebody. So my advice is bake the lasagna, make the quiche, take the motor around, mow the lawns, take the cleaning stuff, clean the house. Just say, I'm coming around. It doesn't matter. The person won't tell you no. And if they say no, still come around, because between the two of you, you can then help them out. They'll appreciate the help more than you could ever know. And especially families that have kids, let the friends pick up the kids. You've really got to be selfish in the way that you have to care and love for yourself during that period.
Yeah, I agree. And that's an awesome tip, for those, who want to give a lending hand, not to just kind of put it out there and say, give me a call, because I think it even happens in everyday life when someone says, oh, if you need anything, and it's like, is this just a throwaway comment, kind of thing?
Yes.
So taking that initiative and just go and do it. And I think, looking, did you find it hard? Sometimes you may have had to ask for help yourself. So how did you find that? Because a lot of people are not comfortable asking for help.
Yeah, I would say usually the help when I asked for it was when I was in the midst of just like a breakdown. And that would usually come when I was talking to somebody on the phone and I was just like, I don't know what to do anymore. I can't do this anymore. And then it was like, okay, all right, we'll be there. I had a few times where a couple of friends said to me, just come out for dinner after you leave the hospital. And I felt really guilty about that. But at the same time, I needed to do that. And they were like, no, Suzanne, you're coming. And they'd ring me in the afternoon. We're still on, we're coming. I'm taking you out for dinner. And it was usually face-to-face that then you'd actually start to kind of like ask people for help. So, you've got to be really committed to your friends when you kind of like say you're going to help, because it's usually they do persuade you. And like I said, I remember one night when Robert, they thought he was going to die during his bone marrow transplant. And I was going out to dinner with some friends and I said to them, to my gorgeous girlfriend, I said, I don't know if I can come. And she's like, Suzanne, you have to come. And I got there and they were like, what is happening? You look horrible. And I said, Robert might die tonight. And I'm sitting in this hotel and it was 3 days out from Christmas. But the best thing is they distracted me that night. And thankfully, Robert made it through. And I then had their support at a time where I probably would have gone home, sat at home and mulled over it. And I probably wouldn't have slept anyway. It was better to actually be with friends.
Yeah, that's a great point, on top of getting like sort of householdy help to make sure like you connect with people, even in these times, during COVID, many people are going through times where we're not connected. And I've had so much happen in the last 7 days that I've made sure, because that's what fuels your fire and gets you distracted from everything else that's going on. So let's then move on and talk about grief and, how you've experienced it. Talk to me a little bit about, how do you deal with it? And, because you say it never goes away, so what are some of your strategies?
So now I do a lot of meditation, and meditation at night. The worst part of the day after I lost Robert is nighttime. You try to kind of relax the brain. You're lying in this big king size bed. I've never been able to, in the 26 months since Robert's been gone, is actually, I can't lie on his side of the bed. It's just, I can't do that. So, and I literally hold my arm out like he's lying on my bed, like, you know, on my arm every night. And so going to bed, even like today, last night, I put my meditation on before I go to sleep. I listened to this amazing man, Jason Stevenson. He's an Australian meditation person that you can actually download on YouTube, and I just listened to him, and literally before he's finished, I have always go to sleep, and then I wake up, and if I wake up in the middle of the night, I do the same thing. You know, if I can't get back to sleep, then I put Jason on, and Jason becomes my best mate, and we get through it. I try to do as much as I can myself around my property. Vitamin D is such a necessary tool. My doctor told me that, you know, I needed to get at least 30 minutes of vitamin D every day. So, you know, be out in the sun. Obviously, I use, you know, factor 50 and everything, but vitamin D really does something to the soul. And really counteracts depression. You know, if you're holed up in your house with no light, then of course it will affect you. And I've had that. I've had moments where, you know, I've you know, twice I've contemplated like ending my life because I got into that deep hole. I laid in bed for too long. I laid in the couch for too long. So vitamin D for me is a real, you know, thing that I have to do, and I have to eat well. I know when my system is like breaking down, I have to eat well. And, you know, and people say, well, these are just things that you should do anyway. And yes, they are. But, you know, when you need to have a healthy body for yourself. And then I still go to counselling. So after Robert died, I had a counsellor. I had a counsellor during his diagnosis. I still go to, and last week I attended a group counselling session with the Leukemia Foundation. They run those for widows and widowers. And I have a counsellor here on the coast, and I see her every fortnight, and we work through the things that I get stuck in. Like, you know, grief isn't just about crying and your emotions. Grief is also about moving forward into the future. Like, I'm going to build an accommodation business here on my property, and probably about 4 weeks ago, I was stuck, Nat. Like, I was like, why am I doing this? Do I have enough money? I just started ruminating on all this negative stuff. And it was all because I had a fear of doing this by myself. Grief, you have a massive fear about doing things by yourself, going out with friends, you know, going to the grocery store by yourself. And in my case, building my business, which was a dream of Robert's and mine, I was in I won't say I was in the black hole, but I was looking down into the black hole. And thankfully my counsellor, you know, worked through it. So, you know, my grief, although it's different from the first 12 months, I still can't believe today that I'm still having moments where I just cry for, you know, up to an hour, because I miss him so much. He was the love of my life, my soulmate, my best mate. And I've got to now, you know, take a future that he can't come on the journey with me. Although my counsellor does say he's with me, but still, you know, physically he's not.
Yeah, people are saying you're such an inspiration on the comments, and it's a tough one. So you say dreams can be fulfilled. So what are some of your dreams now that you have? Like, what's your vision? You know, obviously your accommodation place in the country for people and all that sort of stuff. So what are some of the plans that you're making moving forward? Yeah,
so we brought the property up here it was 12 months before Robert died, but we moved here 6 months before Robert died. So we'd had a vision for many years that when we were 55, we'd be out of corporate Australia, we'd have an accommodation business. And because Robert had had leukemia, we actually wanted the business to have families that had survived leukemia to actually come up and visit our little piece of paradise, and they could basically be away from all the machines and everything else and just have a lovely time with their families. But obviously then Robert passed away, so I still wanted to fulfill that dream. Because, and I had to get in my mindset too, that this isn't our dream. I have to think about it as my dream. This is my dream to fulfill my life. So I'm hoping to build at least 3 cabins at the back of my house. I'll have a big pavilion and a pool. I've got 35 acres, so there'll be hiking that you can do around the property. I've got a beautiful creek that meanders through it, have picnics. But then also too, I want to run widower retreats. So last week I started to put some collateral together for those, where I'll bring 6 to 8 people up to the retreat. It's not formal counselling. It's really just a gathering of like-minded people that may not know other widows or widowers, that form friendships, that can sit down and just chat about how grief has been for them, how life has been for them, and hopefully inspire them to then start to think about their purpose in life, their plans for the future, and, you know, leave here with hopefully a changed mindset. I also have 3 horses on my property, and this week I've decided to do an equine therapy course.
Oh, cool.
My horses have been an amazing source of healing, and the connection I have with my new horse has just blown me away in terms of how she reacts to my emotions when, you know, I go out into the paddock or when I ride her. So I'm actually thinking of doing some equine therapy, because, you know, you ask many people, you know, do you like horses? And people will go, oh God, I wouldn't get in a paddock with a horse and all this kind of thing. But it's quite amazing the effect horses have on you. So I've got some plans to actually run these retreats, and again, hopefully, you know, pass on my experience, but really just get people to know each other that have been through the same type of grief that they have. So that's kind of what the future looks like. Obviously, you know, I'd love to do some speaking events. I want to connect in with some palliative care hospitals, and up here on the coast, there's one up here called Bloom Hill Cancer Care, and I want to go and see them and just do some maybe volunteer work, because again, you know, it comes back to that carers piece. Is it going to help people while they're in that process? So so there's lots of good things, you know, kind of like that I can look into the future, and who knows where that will take me.
Absolutely. And I know how, you know, committed you are when you say you're going to do something. You're very much an action taker, and you're helping a lot of people. So you know, give people maybe like a 1-minute description. If they were going to get your book, what some of the things that they're going to read through it? Is it about the story? Is it about the story and obviously what was helpful to you and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, well, I didn't realize I'd written a love story, Nat. Every time Robert went through another piece of treatment, I fell more in love with him. And, you know, it's really interesting. I still think I love Robert more today than I loved him before leukemia, which is quite interesting in itself. So I definitely wrote a love story. I did write a story which a lot of people have said I've written their story of grief, their story of love. I definitely say have a packet of tissues with you when you do read it. because there is lots of raw emotion. I haven't stepped away from that. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people have said to me, I couldn't do what you did. But, in the midst of adversity and when you don't have any other choice, your strength and resilience comes out, and your courage to do things or be there for your partner or loved one that you never thought you'd ever do. I really do think the book shows that the only reason I am the person I am today is because of what I went through. And I think anybody with the right support and help, and I hope that comes out through the book, that they can do the same if needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I only know this version of you, so I think you're pretty amazing. And so you wrote a pretty big book. It was about 60,000 words, wasn't it? Yeah. So how was the process of doing that? Obviously, you were at November retreat last year, so
yes,
it hasn't even been a year, and you brought your book out fairly fast. Like, it came out just a few months after your retreat. So you had it for about 6 months now?
Yeah, so my book came out in March.
There
so
you
4
go.
months after retreat.
Yeah, I love it. So how did you find the process of a lot of people who've got traumatic stories and situations, find the writing process quite vulnerable, because they have to relive it. Was that did you feel that way as well when you were doing it?
Yeah, I did that, which is how you read it. I actually wrote a little bit up until a tough part, and then I skipped across, and then I wrote the next part, and then I had to be in the right mindset to come back and kind of like finish off, especially the last 4 weeks of Robert's life, and then, the couple of weeks after his funeral. So, but I think the thing that really got me to publish the book was, I remember going to your 2-hour, 3-hour, the initial workshop. I was then asked, and I signed up, and Stuart said, well, can we, before we sign you up, we want to, see what your book is. And I'd done some writing, and I'd actually written 100,000 words, which is why I'm actually doing the second book, because some of that content's going to the second book. But I remember Stuart coming back to me, and he said to me, have you written before? And I said to him, no, I only just passed year 12, Stuart. And then he said to me, this is amazing. This is going to help so many people. And from that moment, with that feedback and giving me that confidence that this might actually do some good. And it's that cliche saying, if it does good for one person, then it was worth writing the book. And then every step of the way post that, like you said, I'm very action orientated. You give me a set of actions in the week, I go and do it. When I was at school, I always liked to be the one that finished my homework, and I might have got A, but I like the tap on the back from the teacher. And so that's what I did. And also to, when you go into your retreats, you ask us to do pre-sale, and I was really lucky. I have a huge network because of where I worked and my family and friends, and obviously they know Robert's story. So, when you sell 150 books pre-sale and you say to them that I'm going to have it finished and out by Robert's birthday, which was the 13th of March, then I'd committed. I'd taken thousands of dollars from people to actually do this. So I was like, I'm going to do it. And all of your team just, enabled me to make that happen.
Yeah, I loved it. And it's very similar to me. I would like to get my work done first, get the homework. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's the motto I think you followed. It's about progress, not perfectionism, and you delivered. And I know you're telling me how wonderful feedback you had from family and friends on the content and all that sort of stuff. So I'm super proud of everything. So where can people grab your book? Like, where can they get a signed copy from you?
So if you go to my webpage, which is www.suzannegomes.com.au, you can go on there. Again, you can read a little bit about the book. You can buy the book. You'll get a, special little editions when you do receive the book. And you'll also, I'll then subscribe you to my fortnightly emails that I send out. And those emails, they relate to content in the book, but they're really about content which is happening in my life now. So it's like a continuation of my story, my learnings, and I get lots of really good feedback around those. So as an added bonus, you get to receive those on a fortnight.
That's awesome. Because it's like, what happens next? How is she now? So that's really cool. So Suzanne is spelled normal and Gomes is Gomes, guys.com.au. Just so you know the spelling, I'm sure Lindy's going to post up the link, but those that are listening to an audio of this, you can go and check it out, and I highly recommend it. You're truly an inspiration. I really can't wait to see the unfolding, obviously the following book, because and the opening of the retreat in the future. So thank you so much for sharing this part of your life and being vulnerable, and I'm sure you're going to help. You've already probably helped more than one person. I can guarantee you that. And with this live, other people will find out about it and grab your book and check out more, maybe because everyone knows someone who is going through, a tough time. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Suzanne. And I hope to see you also very soon face to face so we can hang out.
Excellent. Thanks, Nat. It's been wonderful being on today.
Have a great week. Bye.